The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of Octagon, Seoul's most exclusive nightclub, spraying glass and liquid across designer shoes that probably cost more than Kira's monthly rent. She didn't flinch, just kept her eyes locked on the man who'd bumped into her, some finance bro type with gelled hair and an ego bigger than the Han River. "Watch where you're going," she said, her voice cutting through the bass that made the walls pulse like a heartbeat. The man sneered, his eyes traveling over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Maybe you should watch where you stand. This isn't a place for tourists." Kira felt heat flash through her chest, the familiar anger that came whenever someone reduced her to a category, a box, something less than human. She was about to respond, something sharp and cutting that would wipe that smirk off his face, when a hand appeared on the man's shoulder. Firm. Commanding. The kind of touch that didn't ask permission. "Apologize." The voice was deep, accented, but the English was perfect. "Now." Kira's eyes tracked up from the hand to its owner and her breath caught. He was tall, incredibly so, with sharp features that looked like they'd been carved by someone who understood exactly how devastating a jawline could be. His suit was black, expensive in that understated way that screamed old money, and his eyes were dark, intense, fixed on the finance bro with an expression that promised violence wrapped in silk. I'm sorry," the man stammered, suddenly very interested in his shoes. He scurried away like a roach when the lights come on, disappearing into the crowd. The stranger turned to Kira, and up close he was even more striking. There was something predatory about him, something that made her think of apex predators and closed doors and secrets kept in darkness. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I didn't need rescuing," Kira replied, lifting her chin. She'd spent 3 years in Seoul teaching at a prestigious international school, and she'd learned early that showing weakness was an invitation for disrespect. "I can handle drunk idiots." His mouth curved, not quite a smile. "I'm sure you can. But sometimes it's easier to let someone else handle them." He extended his hand. "Minjun. But most people call me MJ." Kira studied his hand for a moment before taking it. His grip was warm, firm, and something electric passed between them at the contact. "Kira. American?" "Kenyan American," she corrected. "There's a difference." "I'm sure there is." His eyes held hers, and Kira felt like he was reading something in her face that she didn't know was written there. "Can I buy you another drink to replace the one that was destroyed?" "You don't have to do that." "I know. But I want to." He gestured toward the VIP section, separated from the main floor by velvet ropes and men in black suits. "Unless you're enjoying the crowd down here." Kira glanced at her friend Maya, who was dancing with some guy she'd just met, completely oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. Then she looked back at MJ, at his expensive suit and his dangerous smile and the way he stood like he owned not just the space he occupied but all the space around him. Every instinct she had screamed that this was a bad idea. That men like him were trouble wrapped in Armani. That she should politely decline and go back to her safe, boring life teaching present perfect tense to teenagers. She ignored every single one of those instincts. "Lead the way," she said. The VIP section was another world entirely, quieter despite the music, with leather couches and low lighting that turned everyone into shadows and highlights. MJ guided her to a private booth with a view of the entire club spread out below them like a kingdom made of lights and bodies and bass. "So what brings you to Octagon on a Thursday night?" MJ asked after ordering drinks from a server who appeared and disappeared like a ghost. "My friend dragged me here. She said I needed to stop being boring." Kira settled into the leather, hyper-aware of how close he was sitting. "What about you? Do you come here often, or is that too cliché a question?" "I own the place," he said simply. "So yes, you could say I come here often." Kira felt her eyebrows climb. "You own Octagon?" "Among other things." He accepted 2 glasses from the returning server, handed one to Kira. "I have business interests across Seoul. Entertainment, real estate, import-export." "That's impressively vague." His smile widened. "I like to keep some mystery." "Or you're hiding something." Kira took a sip of her drink, some expensive whiskey that burned smooth and warm down her throat. Let me guess, you're one of those men who thinks owning things makes you interesting. And you're one of those women who thinks being unimpressed makes you intriguing. The observation landed like a physical touch, accurate and uncomfortable. Kira felt herself bristle. I don't need to pretend anything. I am intriguing. Prove it. MJ leaned back, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. Tell me something real. Not the script you give everyone, not the armor you wear. Something true. Why would I do that? I don't know you. Exactly. Which means I'm the safest person to tell. I'm nobody to you. Just a stranger in a club. He paused, studying her. Unless you're scared. And there it was, the challenge that Kira could never resist. She'd always been like this, drawn to dares and edges and the places where safety ended and something more interesting began. Her mother blamed it on her father's Kikuyu warrior blood. Kira blamed it on being bored with mediocrity. I came to Seoul because I was running, she said, the words surprising her even as they left her mouth. From a relationship that almost destroyed me. From a version of myself I didn't like. From expectations and disappointments and the feeling that I was living someone else's life. She met his eyes. I thought changing countries would change me. Turns out you bring yourself wherever you go. MJ was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said, I know that feeling. The running. I've been doing it my whole life, just in place. Moving through motions, playing roles, being what everyone expects. His voice dropped. It's exhausting. So why do it? Because the alternative is admitting I don't know who I am without the roles. He lifted his glass in a mock toast. To running in place. To running in place, Kira echoed, and they drank. The conversation flowed after that, easier than it should have been between strangers. They talked about Seoul, about the way the city felt like multiple cities stacked on top of each other, old and new, traditional and futuristic. About what it meant to be foreign in a place that was beautiful and harsh in equal measure. About loneliness and connection and the strange intimacy of late nights in loud places. You're not what I expected, MJ said after their third round of drinks, his voice slightly rougher now. What did you expect? Someone easier to read. Someone who fit into a category. He shifted closer, and Kira could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her want to lean in. But you're complicated. Layered. Like a puzzle I can't quite solve. Maybe I'm not meant to be solved. Maybe that's why I'm interested. His hand found hers on the leather between them, his fingers tracing patterns on her palm that sent electricity up her arm. I'd like to see you again, Kira. Outside this club. Somewhere quieter where we can actually talk without shouting. This is talking. This is foreplay disguised as conversation. His smile was devastating. I want the real thing. Kira's heart hammered against her ribs. She knew she should say no, should recognize all the warning signs that flashed like neon in her mind. But sitting here with MJ, feeling alive for the first time in months, maybe years, she couldn't find the words to refuse. Tomorrow night, she heard herself say. Take me somewhere that shows me the Seoul tourists don't see. Done. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. She did, watching as he typed it in with swift efficiency. Then her phone buzzed with a text that just said, tomorrow. 7 p.m. Wear something warm. Mysterious, Kira said. I learned from the best. He stood, offered his hand to help her up. I should let you get back to your friend. She's been watching us for the last 20 minutes. Kira glanced down and sure enough, Maya was staring up at their booth with wide eyes and an expression that promised an interrogation the moment they were alone. She's going to have questions. Tell her the truth. That you met someone interesting. MJ walked her to the edge of the VIP section, but before she could descend the stairs, he caught her wrist gently. Kira, one more thing. What? Tomorrow when I pick you up, don't bring your armor. Don't bring the version of yourself you show the world. His eyes held hers. Bring the woman who was honest with me tonight. That's who I want to know. The words stayed with Kira long after she left the club, through Maya's excited questions and the taxi ride home and the hours she spent staring at her ceiling, wondering what she'd just agreed to. At exactly 7 p.m. the next night, her doorbell rang. Kira had changed outfits 4 times before settling on black jeans, a burgundy sweater, and her favorite leather jacket. Casual but put together, warm like he'd suggested, but still unmistakably her. MJ stood in her doorway in dark jeans and a black coat, looking somehow more dangerous in regular clothes than he had in his suit. "Ready? Where are we going?" "You'll see." "Do you trust me?" "Absolutely not," Kira said, but she followed him anyway. His car was a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years of teaching. The drive took them out of the city, into mountains that rose like sleeping giants against the twilight sky. Seoul's lights faded behind them, replaced by forest and stone and a kind of darkness that city dwellers forgot existed. "Are you planning to murder me?" Kira asked, only half joking. "Because this is very much the beginning of a true crime documentary." MJ laughed, warm and genuine. "If I wanted you dead, I'd be more creative than driving you into the mountains. No, I'm taking you somewhere special. Somewhere I go when the city gets too loud." They pulled up to what looked like a traditional hammock nestled among the trees, warm light spilling from its windows. "My grandmother's house," MJ explained. "She lives here alone, refuses to move to the city no matter how much my family begs. Says the mountains keep her young." "You're taking me to meet your grandmother on our first date? Is that what this is? A date?" His smile was teasing. "I thought it was just 2 people running in place together." "You're impossible," Kira said, but she was smiling too. MJ's grandmother was tiny, wizened like an ancient tree, with eyes that missed nothing. She greeted MJ in rapid Korean, then turned those sharp eyes on Kira, studying her with an intensity that made Kira feel like every secret she'd ever kept was suddenly visible. "She's pretty," the grandmother said in heavily accented English. "Strong face. Good bones. You chose well, Minjun." "Halmiani, it's not like that," MJ protested, his ears turning slightly red. "We're just friends." "Friends?" The old woman made a dismissive sound. "Friends don't look at each other the way you two look at each other. But fine, we'll call it friends." She gestured them inside. "Come, eat. I made enough for an army." The meal was extraordinary, traditional Korean dishes that tasted like they'd been perfected over decades. Kira found herself relaxing despite the strangeness of the situation, drawn in by the grandmother's stories about MJ as a child, about his stubbornness and his tendency to bite off more than he could chew. "He was always too serious," the grandmother said, refilling Kira's tea. "Even as a boy. Too much responsibility too young. His father, my son, he put too much pressure. Made Minjun forget how to be young." "Halmiani," MJ said quietly, a warning in his voice. But the old woman ignored him, fixing Kira with that penetrating stare. "You're good for him. I can see it. He smiles differently when he looks at you. Like he remembers how." After dinner, MJ and Kira walked in the garden behind the house, their breath misting in the cold mountain air. The city was aglow on the horizon, distant enough to feel like another world entirely. "I'm sorry about my grandmother," MJ said. "She has no filter. I like her. She's honest." Kira pulled her jacket tighter. "And she clearly loves you. She's the only family member who sees me as more than a business asset." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "My father runs an organization in Seoul. I'm being deliberately vague because the details don't matter, but what does matter is that I was raised to take over. Groomed for it. Every choice I've made, every relationship I've had, has been scrutinized for how it affects the business." That sounds suffocating. It is. And it's why I don't usually bring women to meet my grandmother. Why I keep my personal life separate from everything else. He stepped closer. "But you asked me to show you the real Seoul, the one tourists don't see. This is it. This is the part of my life that's actually mine. And I wanted to share it with you." Kira felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to falling. Why me? You don't know anything about me. I know you're brave enough to move halfway around the world alone. I know you're honest even when it's uncomfortable. I know you look at me like I'm just a man, not a position or a bank account. His hand found hers. And I know that when you smile, really smile, it feels like the sun coming out. That's a line, Kira said, but her voice was shaky. It's the truth. He lifted her hand, pressed it against his chest where his heart beat steady and strong. I felt something the moment I saw you last night. Something I haven't felt in years, maybe ever. Like I could breathe properly for the first time. MJ, I don't know if I'm ready for this. For whatever this is. Neither do I. But I'd like to find out. Together. He leaned down, his forehead touching hers. Unless you're still running. Always, Kira whispered. But maybe I'm tired of running alone. The kiss was inevitable, had been since the moment their eyes met across the club. It was soft and searching, tentative like a question they were both trying to answer. MJ's hands framed her face gently, like she was something precious, and Kira melted into it, into him, into the possibility of something she'd stopped believing she could have. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, MJ smiled. So, friend, what now? Now you take me home before your grandmother starts planning our wedding. Too late. She was planning it before we finished dinner. The drive back to Seoul felt different, charged with potential and promise. MJ's hand found hers on the console between them, their fingers interlacing naturally. They talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing easy and comfortable, punctuated by silences that didn't feel awkward but companionable. Can I see you again? MJ asked when they pulled up to her building. Tomorrow? Don't you have a club to run? Businesses to manage? They can wait. You're more interesting. He walked her to her door, but before she could go inside, he caught her hand. Kira, I need you to know something. My life is complicated. There are parts of it that are dangerous, that you shouldn't be involved in. If we do this, if we keep seeing each other, things might get difficult. Is this your way of warning me off? This is my way of being honest. Of giving you a choice with all the information. His eyes searched hers. I want you in my life. But I need you to understand what that means. Kira thought about running, about protecting herself, about all the reasons she should walk away right now before things got messy. Then she thought about how she felt when she was with him. Alive. Real. Like herself but better. I choose to keep seeing you, she said. With all the complications. His smile was brilliant. Then I'll see you tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. The next 3 months unfolded like a dream Kira was terrified of waking from. MJ was everything she hadn't known she needed, attentive without being suffocating, challenging without being cruel, present in a way that made her feel seen for the first time in her life. He took her to night markets in Dongdaemun where they ate tteokbokki until their mouths burned. To museums in Samcheongdong where they debated art and meaning. To his favorite bookstore in Insadong where he bought her Korean poetry collections and tried to translate them, stumbling over English words and making her laugh until her sides hurt. But he also showed her the other side of his life, the one she'd suspected but hadn't fully understood. She met his associates, men with hard faces and harder reputations who bowed to MJ with respect that bordered on fear. She saw him handle problems with cold efficiency, making phone calls in rapid Korean that ended with someone else's business being destroyed or their plans being derailed. What exactly does your father's organization do? Kira asked one night after a particularly tense meeting she'd witnessed from the sidelines. They were in MJ's apartment, a penthouse in Gangnam with floor-to-ceiling windows that turned Seoul into a carpet of lights far below. He'd been quiet since the meeting, tension radiating from him like heat. Things that keep me up at night, he said finally. Things I'm not proud of but can't walk away from. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you. He turned to face her, his expression haunted. My father controls territory across Seoul. Clubs, businesses, politicians. We move things that shouldn't be moved, make problems disappear for people willing to pay. And I'm being groomed to take over all of it when he steps down. You're a criminal, Kira said, the words hanging between them. Yes. No hesitation. No justification. Just honesty that cut like a blade. I'm a criminal. And if you want to walk away right now, I'll understand. I'll make sure you're protected, that nothing I'm involved in touches you. But I won't lie to you about what I am. Kira stood there, processing. Every rational part of her brain screamed to run, to get as far from MJ and his dangerous world as possible. But her heart, that traitorous, reckless thing, refused to cooperate. I'm not walking away, she said. Kira. I'm not walking away, she repeated, moving to him. I don't condone what you do. I don't understand it. But I know you, MJ. I know the man who visits his grandmother every week. Who feeds stray cats behind convenience stores. Who reads poetry and helps old ladies with their groceries. I know the man who looks at me like I'm the answer to a question he's been asking his whole life. You don't know everything. So tell me. She took his hands. Tell me everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. Let me decide what I can handle. So he did. For hours MJ talked, explaining the family business in detail that made Kira's stomach turn. The violence, the coercion, the people hurt in pursuit of power and profit. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't try to make himself sound better than he was. He just gave her the truth, raw and unfiltered. When he finished, dawn was breaking over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Kira felt exhausted, overwhelmed, fundamentally changed by everything she'd learned. If you want to leave, I understand, MJ said quietly. Do you want me to leave? God, no. The words were rough, desperate. I want you to stay more than I've ever wanted anything. But I need you to be sure. I need you to choose this with your eyes open. Kira thought about her life before MJ. Safe, predictable, suffocating in its sameness. Then she thought about these past 3 months, feeling more alive than she'd ever been, even knowing the danger. I choose you, she said. I choose this. All of it. MJ's kiss was desperate, grateful, full of promises and fear in equal measure. And Kira kissed him back, sealing her fate with lips and breath and the knowledge that she was stepping off a cliff with no idea if she'd fly or fall. But 6 weeks later, standing in front of MJ's entire family at a traditional dinner in their ancestral home, Kira wondered if she'd chosen wrong. MJ's father sat at the head of a long table that might as well have been a throne. He was older than MJ, obviously, but carried himself with the kind of authority that made even the air feel heavy. His mother beside him was beautiful and cold, her eyes assessing Kira with the precision of a jeweler examining a fake diamond. So you're the African, MJ's father said in Korean. MJ had been teaching her, and while she wasn't fluent, she understood enough. Kenyan American, sir, Kira replied in careful Korean. But yes. Something flickered in his father's expression. Surprise, maybe, that she'd responded in his language. My son says you're a teacher. Yes, sir. I teach English and literature at Seoul International Academy. And you think that qualifies you to be part of this family? The question was designed to cut, to make her feel small and inadequate. Kira felt MJ tense beside her, felt him preparing to intervene. She squeezed his hand once under the table. I've got this. I think what qualifies me is that I love your son, Kira said, switching to English now. Not his money, not his position, not what he can give me. Just him. The man he is when all the roles and expectations are stripped away. I see him, really see him, and I love him anyway. Love. MJ's mother spoke for the first time, her voice dripping with disdain. Love is a pretty word that means nothing in this world. You're a distraction. A phase. When Minjun tires of playing house with his exotic foreign girlfriend, you'll be cast aside, and he'll marry someone appropriate. The words hit like physical blows. Exotic. Foreign. Cast aside. All the things Kira had feared hearing, all her insecurities weaponized and thrown at her across a dinner table. You're wrong, Kira said, her voice steady even as her hands shook. I'm not a phase or a distraction. I'm the woman your son loves. The woman he chose. And if you can't respect that, it says more about you than it does about me. The silence that followed was arctic. MJ's father studied Kira with new interest, while his mother's expression went from disdainful to furious. The other family members around the table watched like spectators at a particularly brutal sporting event. Then MJ stood, his hand finding Kira's shoulder. Father, Mother, I brought Kira here tonight to introduce you to the woman I plan to marry. Not to ask permission, but to inform you. She's not going anywhere. And if you can't accept that, it's your loss, not ours. Min-jun, his father began. I'm done living my life for this family's approval, MJ continued, his voice hard. I've given you everything. My childhood, my choices, my future. But Kira is mine. She's the one thing I won't compromise on. He turned to Kira, his expression softening. Let's go. They left the dinner in silence, MJ's jaw tight with anger and something that might have been grief. Kira wanted to comfort him but didn't know how, didn't know what words could possibly help. It wasn't until they were back in his car, Seoul's light streaming past the windows, that MJ spoke. I'm sorry. I should have warned you it would be that bad. It's not your fault your mother is the human equivalent of a blizzard. He laughed despite himself, the sound rough and pained. She'll come around eventually. Or she won't. Either way, it doesn't change anything. Doesn't it? Kira turned to face him. MJ, I can't come between you and your family. That's not fair to you. You're not coming between us. They are, by refusing to accept you. He reached over, taking her hand. Kira, when I told you I wanted you in my life, I meant it. All the complications, all the difficulty. My family's disapproval is just another complication. It doesn't change how I feel. And how do you feel? MJ pulled the car over, right there on the side of the road with traffic streaming past. He turned to her, his expression intense. I feel like I've been sleepwalking my entire life until I met you. Like every choice I made before was just going through motions, playing a role. But with you, I'm awake. I'm real. I'm the person I was supposed to be all along. MJ. I love you, Kira. I'm in love with you in a way that terrifies me because I've never felt anything close to this before. And I know it's fast, I know we've only known each other for a few months, but I've never been more sure of anything. He cupped her face gently. So my family can approve or disapprove. They can make things difficult. But they can't change the fact that you're it for me. You're my person. Kira felt tears streaming down her face, felt something break open in her chest that she'd been keeping locked away. I love you too. So much it scares me. Then let's be scared together. He kissed her, soft and sweet, a promise sealed in the worst possible location with the best possible person. Marry me. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect. What? Marry me, MJ repeated. I know it's insane. I know we're still figuring things out. But I don't want to spend another day pretending this is casual or temporary. I want you as my wife. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up next to you for the next 50 years and still find new things to love about you. Your family will disown you. Let them. You're my family now. MJ, this is crazy. The best things usually are. He was smiling now, that devastating smile that made her forget how to think properly. Say yes, Kira. Take a leap with me. She should have said no. Should have been sensible and careful and all the things she'd promised herself she'd be after moving to Seoul. But sitting there in the car with MJ looking at her like she was his entire world, Kira discovered she was tired of being sensible. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. His kiss this time was desperate and joyful, full of relief and promise and the future they were choosing together. And when they finally pulled apart, both laughing and crying, Kira thought about the woman who'd walked into Octagon 4 months ago. Bored, restless, searching for something she couldn't name. She'd found it. found him. Found herself in the process. So, MJ said, starting the car again. How do you feel about small weddings? Define small. Just close family and friends. Maybe 100 people. That's not small, that's a production. In my family, that's intimate. He grinned. My father's last business dinner had 300 guests. Oh God, what am I getting into? Too late for second thoughts now. His hand found hers. You already said yes. I did, didn't I? Kira looked at their joined hands, at the future stretching ahead of them full of complications and joy in equal measure. I really did. The wedding happened 6 months later in a fusion ceremony that somehow honored both their cultures. Kira wore white for the ceremony, then changed into a stunning Kenyan kaitench for the reception, the fabric brilliant with colors that made her skin glow. MJ wore traditional Korean hanbok that made him look like royalty, his eyes never leaving Kira through the entire day. Kira's family flew in from Kenya and America, filling the venue with laughter and music and the kind of warmth she'd been missing. MJ's grandmother sat in the front row, crying happy tears and telling anyone who would listen that she'd known from the first night they were meant to be. Even MJ's parents attended, though his mother's smile was strained and his father's approval was grudging at best. But they were there, and Kira chose to see it as a beginning rather than a failure. We did it, MJ said as they danced, holding each other close while their family celebrated around them. We actually did it. Did you doubt we would? Every day. And then I'd wake up next to you and remember why it was worth the doubt. He kissed her softly. I love you, Mrs. Kim. I love you too, Mr. Kim. Kira smiled against his lips. My criminal, my partner, my home. Your home, he repeated, and something in his voice broke. That's all I ever wanted to be. As they swayed to music that blended Korean and Kenyan rhythms, surrounded by two cultures learning to merge, by families finding common ground, by the life they were building together despite all the odds, Kira felt peace settle in her chest. 4 months ago, she'd been standing in a club feeling bored and restless, daring the city to impress her. Now she stood married to a man who was everything dangerous and everything right, building a life that made no sense on paper but perfect sense in her heart. She'd reached for fire and gotten burned. But she'd also gotten warmth, safety, love that consumed and completed her in ways she'd never imagined possible. And as MJ spun her across the dance floor, both of them laughing and breathless and impossibly happy, Kira knew she'd do it all again. Every reckless choice, every dangerous decision, every moment of doubt and fear, because they'd led her here to this man, this life, this love. Sometimes you had to reach for fire. Sometimes the burn transformed you into something stronger, something better, something real. Sometimes the most dangerous choice was the only one worth making. And sometimes, if you were very brave and very lucky, the man you chose to love turned out to be exactly the partner you needed. If you loved Kira and MJ's passionate journey from strangers to soulmates, drop a comment below telling me what moment hit you the hardest. Was it their first meeting at Octagon? The dinner with MJ's family? That spontaneous proposal on the side of the road? Let me know what you thought, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about unexpected connections, forbidden love, and finding home in the most unlikely places. Hit that like button if you believe in taking chances on love, even when it's complicated, even when it's dangerous, even when everyone tells you it's impossible. Because sometimes the impossible is exactly what we need.